Now, in 1999, a British filmmaker conceived the idea of a global day of peace. Just 2 years later, persistent lobbying by Jeremy Gilley saw the UN General Assembly unanimously adopt Peace One Day.
One man, Jeremy Gilley, has spent the last 13 years trying to ensure that on the 21st of September every year, the shooting stops all over the world at the same time.
By 2007, an estimated 100 million people were actively marking the day across 192 countries.
Now it is the United Nations International Day of Peace today.
Well, filmmaker and campaigner Jeremy Gilley is the man behind Peace Day.
Jeremy, just to start at the beginning, how did you come up with this idea for a global day of peace?
So I was thinking about peace, and then I was thinking, well, where's the starting point for peace? And that was when I had the idea. There was no starting point for peace. There was no day of global unity. There was no day of intercultural cooperation. There was no day when humanity came together. Obviously, we didn't have any money. I was living in my mum's place. We started writing letters to everybody. I mean, you very quickly work out, what is it that you've got to do, to kind of, fathom that out. I mean, how do you create a day voted by every single head of state in the world to create the first ever ceasefire non-violence day? And a letter came through from the Dalai Lama saying, this is an amazing thing, come and see me. I'd love to talk to you about the first ever day of peace. And we didn't have the money for the flight. I rang Sir Bob Ayling, who was CEO of BA at the time, and said, mate, we've got this invitation, could you give me a flight? Because we're going to go and see him. And of course, we went and saw him, and it was amazing. Kofi and Annan said this would be beneficial to my troops on the ground.
Any moment, whether it's a day or a week, that we can give the combatants to pause, to think, and reflect on what they are doing to their own people and to the environment will be a great achievement. And I will support it 100%.
And Kofi and Annan invited me on the morning of the September the 11th to do a press conference. And it was 8 a.m. when I was stood there, and I was waiting for him to come down, and I knew he was on his way. And obviously, he never came down. The statement was never made. The world was never told there was a day of global ceasefire and non-violence. And it was obviously a tragic moment for the thousands of people who lost their lives there and then subsequently all over the world. It never happened. And I remember thinking, this is exactly why, actually, we have to work even harder. And we have to make this day work. It's being created, nobody knows, but we have to continue this journey, and we have to tell people, and we have to prove it can work. And I left New York, freaked, but actually empowered. And I felt inspired by the possibilities that if it did, then maybe we wouldn't see things like that.
On Peace Day, there'll be activity in every single country of the world. Some of that, of course, will be life-saving activity, as happened in Afghanistan, where myself and Jude Law, the ambassador, went over there and led a process with UNICEF, WHO, and other agencies, which stopped the fighting.
I remember one of the team bringing in a letter to me from the Taliban. And that letter basically said, we will observe this day, we see it as a window of opportunity, and we will not engage. We're not going to engage. And that meant that, humanitarian workers, wouldn't be kidnapped, or killed. And then suddenly, I obviously knew at this point there was a chance. And days later, 1.6 million children were vaccinated against polio as a consequence of everybody stopping. And then there was this other statement that came out from the UN Department of Security and Safety saying that in Afghanistan, because of this work, the violence was down by 70%. 70% reduction in violence on this day of peace. And that completely blew my mind. And that made me think that if we can get 70% in Afghanistan, then surely we can get 70% reduction everywhere.
What happened in Afghanistan was extraordinary, and it's made us believe that if we can do it there, we can do it everywhere. And so I'm delighted when I watch the statement from Ban Ki-moon or the prosecutor, or I hear from the National Union of Students or from teachers around the world. It makes me think that it's possible to unite humanity, to come together as one, separate from politics and a religion, on a scale that we've never done before.
By working together, we can create peace one day. Thank you, Ted. Thank you.